Hi guys, welcome back to Spaceboy by David Walliams. I wasn't at home over the weekend, so I did not have access to my laptop to do these read-alongs, but I've been really excited to do it today because I'm really enjoying the book. I've not read it before, so yeah, this is all David Walliams' own work. I'm just reading it for entertainment and pleasure. This is David Walliams' Spaceboy, Chapter 10, A Trail of Blood. To Ruth's enormous surprise, the barn was empty. The alien was nowhere to be found. "See," she said, mightily relieved. "I told you there was no one in here." Aunt Dorothy harumphed. "Huh? I need to call the sheriff right away." "Do you really need to call him? He must be busy." "What are you talking about, you great fool? A plane crashed on our farm. Of course I need to call the sheriff." "No rush. Tomorrow?" "No, not tomorrow. Right now." Aunt Dorothy turned, flung her shotgun over her shoulder, and strode off across the smouldering field back to her farmhouse. "Where's our new friend?" Ruth hissed to Yuri. Immediately the little dog began following a trail with his nose. It was only when she bent right down and put her face to the ground that Ruth realized her clever little dog had found a trail of blood. Tiny spots of red dotted on the ground. Dot, dot, dot. Who knew aliens had red blood just like humans? At least this one did. It might be from his injured knee. Yuri followed the trail with increasing excitement. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Despite him having only 3 legs, Ruth found it hard to keep up with Yuri now. Together they raced around the ostrich pen until the trail stopped. Dead. Nothing more to sniff. Yuri began chasing his own tail. "Woof, woof, woof," he barked. Ruth searched the ground for more flecks of blood, but there weren't any. Not one. She looked up in the morning sky. Perhaps the alien had been teleported off Earth and shot back up into outer space. No, Ruth would have seen something while putting out the fires. There were no trees around to hide behind. The only structure nearby was the well. Had the alien crawled all the way from the barn and hidden inside? Ruth leaned into the darkness. She heard a noise down there. Splosh! "Hello!" she called down, her words echoing down the shaft. She was sure she heard something moving around in there. "Hello?" she called again. "Ah!" came an echoing sound. "My wicked aunt and her shotgun have gone now. You are safe. Come on, let me help you out." But before the alien could answer, whoa, 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 whoa! It was the wail of a police siren. Okay, I'll do that a bit better. Whoa, 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 whoa! It was a wail of the police siren. The girl stood upright in an instant, banging her head on the hoist. Clang! "Ouch!" exclaimed Ruth, before adding, "Wow, the sheriff is fast." Chapter 11, Too Tight for Trousers. Ruth looked across the fields. A dust cloud was racing along the farm like a tornado. Rumph! Oh, it was heading straight towards her. Vroom! In a flash, a police car burned into view, the dust cloud trailing behind it. The cows in their fields scattered. Ruth felt a punch of panic. If she didn't do something fast, she was going to lead the local sheriff right to the alien. So this page is like a comic book strip. It's really good. Ruth had to look as innocent as possible, standing right in front of the well. She crossed her arms. Somehow that felt unnatural, so she uncrossed them and let them dangle by her sides. That was awkward. That felt awkward too. It was as if her arms only had been stuck on a second ago, and she had absolutely no clue as to what to do with them. Woo, 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 woo. Ruth settled on hiding her arms behind her back as the police car skidded to a halt. Screech! It stopped an inch from her feet. Yuri retreated behind her legs. The sheriff squeezed his bulk out of his car window. It took quite a while. The man was famous for being fond of doughnuts, and true to form, he had one in his leather-gloved hand. He took a huge bite out of it as if he were a ravenous grizzly bear. Munch! The bite was so huge that a dollop of strawberry jam squirted out of the doughnut. Splurge! The dollop of jam landed slap bang in Ruth's eye. Plunge! The sheriff was a sight to be told. And then there's a picture of him, and I'll read the labels. Cowboy hat, matchstick for chewing gum, chewing permanently in mouth, dark glasses, driving gloves, jam stains, unknown stains, handcuff, light dusting of donut sugar, tiny moustache, far too small for his face, gold sheriff's badge, cowboy boots. Good morning, you, Miss Ruth, began the sheriff, completely ignoring her jammy eye. Sugar sprayed all over his mouth with every syllable. Good morning, Sheriff, chirped the girl, pretending to be over the moon to see him. And what a super morning it is, too. We don't have time for all that. No? No, I raced right here, sirens blazing, as I took an emergency call from your aunt, Miss Dorothy, he began in his deep drawl. The sheriff meant business, so there'll be no doubt of this. He hoisted up his leg and rested a clumpy foot on the wall of the well. Thont! His tight trousers ripped at this movement, right along the bottom. Rip! Now you could see his undercrackers. He put his leg back down again slowly. Then he felt the back of his trousers. Not again, he murmured to himself. So Aunt Dorothy called you, said Ruth, her tone far too surprised to be believed. Whatever about? Her arms felt stiff behind her back, so she returned them to her front. They dangled there as if they belonged to someone else entirely, perhaps an orangutan. Miss Dorothy told me there was a plane crash right here on this farm last night, replied the sheriff, bemused. Oh yes, there was a plane crash. Silly me, I completely forgot. The sheriff's eyes bulged. The man knew a lie when he heard one. He put his greasy nose right next to Ruth's and looked deep into her eyes. That way he would be sure to spot a lie. And this young lady clearly dealt in whoppers. Keeping his gaze firmly fixed on hers, he spoke very deliberately and slowly. You don't have a plane crash on your farm here every night, do you? Ruth gulped. How was she going to get out of this one? Chapter 12, Whoppers. Ruth pretended to think about the sheriff's question. Not every night, no, she began. We didn't have any plane crashes on the farm at all at the weekend, or last week, or last month, or last year, or the year before that, or the year before that one. In fact, come to think of it, it's never ever happened before, she concluded, wiping the jam out of her eye and sucking it off of her finger. The jam was truly scrumptious. Ugh, it was a moan from down the well. What was that? Demanded the sheriff. What was what? Replied Ruth, even though she knew exactly what that was. That sound. What sound? She asked. It was like a moaning sound, pressed the sheriff. Ugh, it echoed once more. There it is again. Oh, that? Asked Ruth. Just my tummy rumbling. Another one of our whoppers. I haven't had breakfast ever. Please could I just have one of your spare donuts? From the corner of her eye she spied a big box of them on the passenger seat of the police car. Sorry guys, have a quick drink. Jam ones, custard ones, chocolate ones, cream ones, ring ones with hundreds of thousands sprinkled on top. They were all crying out to be eaten. I'm so sorry, Miss Ruth, but I only bought a dozen, replied the sheriff, shaking his head and taking another bite. Chump! I understand, she replied, although she didn't. So, Miss Ruth, did you see this airplane fall out of the sky? No, but your Aunt Dorothy once told me that you have a telescope up in your attic room at the top of the house. Yes. So you were staring up at the night sky, but you didn't see a thing? Ruth shook her head so much that her cheeks wobbled. Is that a no? He pressed. Yes, yes, that's a no. I didn't see a thing. I was fast asleep. Another whopper. The sheriff leaned in so close that Ruth got a gust of black coffee breath. Blech. It smelled so sour. Yuck. Why did grown-ups drink gallons of the stuff? It was disgusting. Asleep, is that so? Queried the sheriff. Ruth nodded her head, fast asleep, snoring away, dreaming of butterflies and unicorns and fairies, like us children do. Then bang! Woke me up! I ran out and saw a wreckage of what definitely was 100%, no doubt about it. Crossed my heart and hoped to die an aeroplane. The sheriff's sugar-dusted moustache twitched in disbelief. Were there any survivors? Ruth bowed her head sorrowfully. No. Whopper! To make it more dramatic, she attempted to force out a tear, but none came. Instead, she pretended to blink one away, sniffing to add some colour to her performance. Sniff. You're completely sure there were no survivors? He pressed. Yes, well, no, actually. No. Yes and no. Yes and no. No, yes, no, I don't know. The sheriff shook his head. The girl's answers were becoming weirder and weirder by the minute. They must all be whoppers. Has your little dog here sniffed out any survivors? Not one at all. Isn't that right, Yuri? Ruth looked down at him like a very good dog. He shook his head. Even he was whopping now. Well, I think it's high time I began some detective work of my own, mused the sheriff, stuffing the last hunk of one of dozen donuts into his mouth. Don't you? Ruth shrugged, which made her look guilty. The hefty man began ambling around the crash site. Wherever he spotted a singed patch of ground, he bent down to snap for clues, his knees clicking each time. Snap, snap. He picked up the charred fragments of the metal from the flying saucer one by one and inspected them, evidently feeling like a genius detective. There's not much left of this airplane, is there? He asked. No, agreed Ruth. I think it's unlikely it will ever fly again. The sheriff raised his caterpillar eyebrows. You don't say. Then out of the corner of his eye he spotted something strange, the pod, or rather what was left of it. The sheriff was not an intelligent man. He probably couldn't even spell the word. However, it didn't take a genius to realise that this wide round glass pod did not belong to an aeroplane. This don't look like no airplane, remarked the sheriff. He peered inside the charred and smashed bubble. Well, I'll be darned. I've seen one of those at the movies. This must be one of them FUOs. Ruth broke into a cold sweat. Well, I must imagine you're a busy man, Sheriff, she babbled. I don't want to take up any more of your precious time. Thank you so much for stopping by. Do you come again soon? One of those FUOs in this old town. Well, I'll be darned. The sheriff took off his cowboy hat and hurled it into the air. He tried to catch it, but failed. No matter, he picked up his now dusty hat and performed a little celebratory dance. Yee-haw! He danced all around the well. Ruth looked on nervously and prayed there weren't any more moans from down there. Fortunately, after just one lap of the well, Sheriff was completely puffed out. Huh? He gasped. He gasped. Perhaps fearing that he might collapse, he leaned heavily on Ruth's shoulder. She felt as if she were going to be pushed into the centre of the earth by his bolt. Are you all right? Asked Ruth, a fair bit shorter than she had been a moment ago. I think I need some water. Let me grab some from your well, he said, reaching out for the bucket. Ruth panicked. No! The alien was down there. Chapter 13. It speaks. No, said Ruth. No what? Asked the sheriff. No water. Why? No time. You need to get going. I do. Yes, you have an important police business to attend to. Donuts to eat, sirens to wail, pants to split. I do. We haven't had much drama in this town since old Farmer Gideon's goat gobbled down the white bloomers, he announced. An FUO, a flying unidentified odour. This is big. This is bigger than big. This is bigger-roony. I gotta get to the nearest telephone. I gotta call the CIA. I gotta call the FBI. I gotta call the mayor. I gotta call the sheriff. Oh no, I am the sheriff. I know. I gotta call the president. Ruth and Yuri watched in disbelief as the bulky man took a running jump and dived through the window of his police car. Woof! He landed face down in his own box of donuts. Splurt. When he righted himself on the driving seat, his face was a riot of sugar jam, icing, chocolate, custard, cream, and hundreds and thousands. Then there's a before and after picture. You stay right there, little lady. Don't touch a thing, shouted the sheriff, leaning out of his police car window. He stamped on the accelerator pedal and the car lurched off at a terrific speed. Vroom! I won't, she lied. Not that the sheriff could possibly have heard her, as the siren was deafening. Woo, 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 woo. The police car looked as if it was going to rattle into pieces as it zoomed back across the field. Rattle, rattle, rattle. Yuri couldn't watch any more. He shook his head and covered his eyes with a paw. Once the car had disappeared in another tornado of dust, Ruth paced back over to the well. Hello, she called down there into darkness. Are you still there? It was pitch black, so Ruth leaned in a little further to see. As her eyes became accustomed to the dark, she saw that the alien was clinging onto the rope. Don't be scared, my friend, she said. The sheriff's gone now, and my aunt and her shotgun are back at the farmhouse. No one is going to hurt you, I promise. Here, give me your hand. Ruth leaned a little further into the well, her toes lifting off of the ground. Like a seesaw, she toppled forward. But unlike a seesaw, she didn't topple back, just kept toppling in. Ah, she cried as she tumbled down the well. She hit the alien hard. Boof! Ouch! It cried. Ruth carried on tumbling. She closed her eyes. Was this the end? A gloved hand gripped tightly onto her ankle. The alien had saved her life. Thank you, she said as she dangled headfirst down the well. Yuri barked and barked. Woof, 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 woof. The little dog was in a big panic, so that he jumped up onto the wall of the well. Having only 3 legs and an egg whisk, he lost his footing and fell down the well too. Ruff! He yelped. As Yuri plummeted into darkness, he struck Ruth. Bash! Ah! Cried Ruth as she nosedived down the well. Yuri managed to bite onto the back of her pajamas. Chomp! And somehow the alien grabbed hold of the little dog's tail. Ruff! Yelped Yuri again. Now all 3 were hanging down the well in a chain with a little dog in the middle. One false move and they'd all be history. Ruth pushed her feet to either side of the well and, despite the slimy walls, managed to wedge herself in place. Her little dog then perched on her head, his very bottom within sniffing distance of her nose. I've got you, Yuri, she said. Let's get out of here now. Then she felt her wrist being gripped. Ugh! She exclaimed the alien in effort. Little by little she was hoisted up through the darkness into the light. The next thing she knew, all 3 were lying in a heap beside the well. Ugh! Moaned the alien, clutching at his leg. Your knee! Exclaimed Ruth. Let me see what I can do. Ruth scrambled to all 4s. At first the alien wouldn't remove its gloved hand from its leg, but the girl reassured it. It's okay, we're friends, remember? Slowly it did. That's nasty, remarked Ruth, inspecting the wound. The alien's knee was all oozy. It must have hit it hard on impact with the earth. We need a bandage, she said. I know. Yuri's bite onto my sleeve. The little dog did as he was told. Chomp. Now tug of war. The pair pulled in opposite directions and bingo, rip. The arm of Ruth's pajamas was torn off. Yes, she exclaimed. This will make the perfect bandage. Within moments, she wrapped it round the alien's knee and tied it tight. Thank you, it said. It speaks. Chapter 14, Hiding Place. Yes, boomed the alien from under its tall helmet. It has the spookiest voice like a giant speaking inside a cave. Well, why didn't you say anything earlier? Asked Ruth. I couldn't get a word in edgeways. This made Ruth laugh. She did talk a lot. Yes, I do tend to babble. I have a billion questions for you. All in good time. What can I call you? Spaceboy. That's what I call myself. Cool name. Hello, Spaceboy. So you're a boy. Yes, how about you? Well, some people think I'm a boy because I cut my hair short and I am into space, but that's so behind the times. It's the 1960s, for goodness sake. I'm into space too. You're from outer space. Oh, yes. A distant siren wailed. Woo, woo, woo. Oh, no, exclaimed Ruth. Not him again. They can't find me, boomed the alien panicking voice. Why? Because if they do, I will be in terrible danger. How do you know? I know. Then we need to hide you. Come on, Spaceboy. Ruth and Yuri led a limping Spaceboy to a distant corner of the farm, not far from the pen ostriches. A wonky garage squatted. It was home to Aunt Dorothy's ancient farm vehicles. The tractor and combine harvester were both broken down and rusty, ready for the scrapyard, but it cost money to have them repaired or towed away, so Aunt Dorothy had left them there to rot. When she was little, Ruth used to clamber up onto the tractor. She put Yuri in front and sit there happily for hours, turning the wheel and making engine noises. Brum, brum, brum. Ruth had the most marvellous dream of escaping to a far-off land, a world away from a cruel aunt. There she would find her mum and dad again. Of course, it was all in her imagination. Still, it gave Ruth comfort. Her dream was the only thing Aunt Dorothy couldn't take her away from her. No one ever went in the garage, and if they did, Ruth knew plenty of good places to hide an alien. Inside the stack of spare tyres, in the combine harvester, behind the hay bales, up in the rafters, behind the toolbox, in the old tin bath, behind the gas tank, underneath the worktop, under the old dust sheet. When the pair forced open the door to the garage, Spaceboy was instantly interested in the tractor. That's called a tractor, announced Ruth. A tractor. Tractor. It's what us humans use to work on a farm. Tractor, repeated Spaceboy. In moments he was tinkering with the engines. "You're wasting your time with that silly old thing. It hasn't worked for years," said Ruth. But Spaceboy ignored her. With his gloved hands, he continued meddling with wires, tweaking knobs and turning dials. Ruth and Yuri shared a look. What was this otherworldly figure up to now? Still, there seemed to be no point in stopping him. Spaceboy could hardly make the old wreck any worse. He continued fiddling with every little part of the engine parts, of which Ruth didn't even know the names. Then the most extraordinary thing happened. Spaceboy turned the key in the ignition, and for the first time in decades, the tractor shuddered into life. Splutter, splutter! It sounded like a very old man coughing, but soon hummed as if it were brand new. Brum, brum, brum! Was Spaceboy magic? Okay, guys, I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for listening. The next chapter will be chapter 15 and the giant eagle, but we are going to stop there. For those of you who are reading along, it's on 122. That's the page number, by the way. Thank you again so much for listening. Until next time, guys. Goodbye.